All right, welcome to the Come Follow Me series. This is Psalms Part 3, where we're going to talk a little bit more about the Psalms outside of the Book of Psalms and even the Old Testament. We're going to go into the New Testament and a little bit of the Book of Mormon here and talk about the integration of the temple drama and the Psalms in these other books. I think this is really fascinating when you really look at this. We're going to go right into... We're going to go to here. We want to go first to Acts, and we're going to go to Acts 4 here. And I want you to look here at what we've got here in verses 25 to 27. It says, this is Peter and John, right? They've been ordered to by the Sanhedrin to preach, to not preach about Jesus Christ. And the church is praying for the apostles, and what they end up doing is they quote Psalm 2. So 25, by whom the mouth of thy servant David, or we know what that means, that's like a label, or by the mouth of thy servant the king, the Davidic king, has said, why did the heathen rage, and the people imagine vain things? The kings, see the center of this, the kings of the earth stood up, and the rulers were gathered together against the Lord and against Christ. So what we're getting here is another kind of a something that supports the title of the King of Kings, right? 27, for a truth against thy holy child Jesus, whom thou hast anointed. Both Herod and Pontius Pilate with the Gentiles and the people of Israel were gathered together. So backing up here again, why did the heathen rage and the people imagine vain things? And we go right into Psalm 2 here, verse 1. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? So when we get this focus on kings and other kings and therefore the King of Kings and anointing, then we roll right into this. Here we get it again in verse 2. The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers to take counsel against the Lord and against his anointed. Remember how important what that means. Against his anointed is the anointed king. It is Jehovah, or the temporal king and queen that are the king that would be playing Jehovah. Now we go into the last week of Jesus's life, and we're only going to touch on a few of these, but this is everywhere. Look at Matthew 27. This is the scene with Pilate and Barabbas and Christ. Okay, let's go to verse 11 here. And Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, art thou the king of the Jews? Now remember, this is the last week of Jesus's life. So we're talking about the royal procession and then all of the events that happen after that. This is all about the drama. It's all about the temple drama playing out, right? So, art thou the king of the Jews? And Jesus said unto him, thou is. So when he asks that, the irony here is that what is being reflected here is the belief of Jesus's followers that he is the King of Kings from the ancient Israelite temple drama that is being played out. And the Sadducees especially, the chief priests who are here in front of Pilate, who are saying, crucify him, they are very much enraged about this. You know, don't go back and try and change doctrine again on us. Right? We don't believe that there was an ancient Israelite drama that talked about a savior, that talked about the King of Kings, right? And so that's the irony that's playing out here in this scene with Pilate, Barabbas, the Jesus Christ, and the Sadducees and chief priests and a few others that are with them. Now you see here also coming down a little bit further in this, where they talk about what evil has been done, the blood be upon our children. This is all about I've gone over this several times, but this is all about the Day of Atonement. It's the play out of Leviticus 16. But you see here what happens, right, in 27. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. And they stripped him and put him in a scarlet robe. And when they had plaited a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head and a reed in his right hand, and they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, hail the King of the Jews. See, when we talk about the King of the Jews, we must do this in the context of the ancient Israelite temple drama, I believe. and understand what is happening. He did not get crowned in the temple, which is what is supposed to happen. He comes in on the donkey from the east gate, ascends the mountain up to the temple, cleanses it out. He's supposed to be crowned there, but he isn't crowned there. He's crowned by secularists, right? Or he's crowned by those that are non-faithful. It's a mocking ceremony here that happens with him. Now, you'll see here also several references to the king, right? The king of the Jews. You can see what the authors are doing here. In verse 11, and Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, Art thou the king of the Jews? And Jesus said unto him, Thou sayest it. We come down a little bit further here, and we get the mocking and the mocking coronation ceremony, and then down here in 37, and set up over his head his accusation written. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. So that placard up above him on the cross has so much more richness and context to it, because this is the king of the drama. He's both the king of the Jews in the sense that it's the role that the king would play, the temporal king, but he's Jehovah. He's the King of Kings, the King of the Jews, ultimately the spiritual King of the Jews. And when we get that, when we see the ancient drama in this, the temple drama, then it changes a lot of how we understand what's going on here. We even get into the temple a little bit more and saying these are the those that pass by him, and they say, Thou that destroyest the temple and buildest it in 3 days, save thyself, if thou be the Son of God. Also a drama title, a temple title of Jesus here. If thou be the Son of God, come down from the cross. And then 42, he saved others, himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down off the cross, and we will believe him. Remember that in the ancient temple drama, Jehovah comes and rescues the king from the underworld and brings him back to life. He gets rid of the spiritual death and hell and judgment, and there's resurrection, right, from a mortal death, right? And so, and then he said, I am the Son of God. Okay, so this is all part of what we would get in the temple drama. Now, we talked about the Romans who are parting his garments. Let me read 35 again. And they crucified him and parted his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet. They parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots. Okay, so let's go back again to Psalm 22 here. And what do we get down here? We're probably going to do this backwards here. Verse 18, they part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vesture. What is happening? This is the exact thing that happens in the Psalms. It's the temple drama that is playing out. Let's go back here to Matthew 27 again and see what Jesus says here when he is on the cross. In verse 46, it says, And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That's Aramaic. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Okay, and then we go again to 22 here at the very beginning of Psalm 22. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? What is this? What is happening? This is the play out, the manifestation of the ancient temple drama here. It's not just a bunch of poetry by David in the Psalms. It's not just David here going in and prophesying. The temple drama is from visions. The temple drama is built off of visions. That is the prophecies that would be in the temple drama here. Now, also, if we go to, we'll pass on that one. There are several examples in the New Testament. Psalms is the most quoted book in the New Testament. Why? Why is it the most quoted book in the New Testament? And why is the most quoted Psalm, Psalm 110, about Melchizedek, and the order of the priesthood. Melchizedek means king of righteousness. It's about the king. It's a royal psalm. It is the number one quote, I believe number one quoted Old Testament verse in all of the New Testament, but it is certainly the number one quoted psalm in all of the New Testament. Why? Right? What is happening? Well, what's happening is that the New Testament authors are restoring what was lost in the ancient temple drama. There is a heritage here. There is a teaching here that they are grabbing onto from somewhere that they are receiving. Perhaps it's from inspiration. More likely, it's something that's passed down among some of the Jews. And they're hanging on to this, right? Again, there were many of the Jews that were held back, did not get carried into Babylon, and that were already scattered. Already a lot of Jews that went to Egypt. There would be traditions about the annual ancient temple drama that those individuals had gone through their entire lives, probably close to annually, right? Okay, so that's an important part, a restitution of doctrine coming in and playing out, especially in the last week of Jesus's life. Very important to see here, I think. Another one is if you go to the book of Hebrews, you'll see the temple drama everywhere there. That's a very interesting book. I need to take a lot more time in studying that book. I've studied it a lot, but in light of the temple drama, you have Melchizedek in there, the term Melchizedek. He's the new Melchizedek. You have a number of psalms that are quoted in the book of Hebrews. That's very interesting. Even the title is pretty interesting. Is this written to those that would have hung on to a tradition of the ancient temple drama? I don't know, but it's written very different from all of the other epistles. We don't know that it's Paul. It could be, and maybe he's writing more. Maybe it's Paul, but he's using a lot of the temple drama liturgy in there, so it affects the way his writing is, and that's why it's different. I don't know. But Hebrews is a great book to look at in light of what we've gone over in the Psalms. Now, you can also go through the Book of Mormon, and there is a lot in there that you can look at and refer back to the temple drama. A lot more work needs to be done on this. LeGrand Baker and Stephen Ricks, who I've referred to often, they've done a little work on this, but it's not where it needs to be. They've done some good work, but there needs to be more work on this. I hope that some Latter-day Saint scholars will really take this upon themselves and focus on this more in going into some of these topics and in some of the sermons that you get in the Book of Mormon, and try and understand how this might be related directly to the Psalms and the ancient temple drama, because it really is core to the prophets. They know what's going on. And remember, in the Book of Mormon, they leave Jerusalem. Now, it may very well be that the temple drama had already been corrupted. I think it probably was. We know the ordinances have been corrupted. With Jeremiah, there he talks about the priests and the temple ordinances all being corrupted in the time of Lehi. There are problems, and so the drama that goes along with that is probably corrupted and changed in that time. But that doesn't mean that Lehi doesn't know from before, perhaps from before some of the reforms of the drama, what's going on there and what belongs in there. Or it's interesting that in the Old Testament, the play of the no pun intended, the play out of the drama is not found. Maybe it's in the brass plates. They know about this, and they would carry it out. They would have the drama, and they would understand the heritage and legacy and doctrinal points that are found in the ancient Israelite drama, and institute them wherever they go. Just like when Nephi immediately wants to build a temple like the temple after, or the design after the Temple of Solomon. And then they get to Zarahemla, and then there's Bountiful, and you end up with a temple there. What's happening there is they obviously are going to have the festivals. It's the law of Moses they're following. So you're talking about Passover and Pentecost, or Feast of Weeks, and you're going to have Sukkot or the Feast of Tabernacles and the others. that would all be occurring at the temple with the dramas and the readings and everything and the singing and the choruses, the narrative and story that goes along with those festivals that come from the king and or the prophet. So if we go first to 1 Nephi 1, I don't remember if we covered this before, but right in the first verse, you get, this is Nephi saying, having had a great knowledge of the goodness and the mysteries of God. It's interesting that that's put in there right away to start off the entire Book of Mormon, or start off the small plates. The mysteries come from the Greek term mysterion. The mysteries are found in all temples of all religions, pagan temples, all of them. And it's a matter, the mysteries are those things that you learn, the knowledge you gain, and yes, the covenants and advances that you make within a temple. So whenever you see the term mysteries, you should think about the temple. It's not always going to that, but oftentimes, if not always, it's focused on the covenants and the drama that was found at the temple, in the temple drama, especially those things that are learned in the premortal council in heaven. Okay, that would be very important. And Nephi is certainly received. He writes this probably 40 years after the fact, after leaving Jerusalem. So he's probably had several of these. We know he's had several of these visions, and perhaps the brass plates are giving him an awful lot of information about the temple drama. Okay, so he talks about these mysteries, and then he goes right into saying, I make a record in the language of my father, which consists of the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians, not Reformed Egyptian. Keep that in mind. Okay, so that's something that we would start off with there. If we go into Mosiah quickly, and this is, I don't see how you can argue against, not legitimately against this being a Feast of Tabernacles event and probably temple drama that is happening here with the king, who is also the prophet, and he would have the Melchizedek priesthood. He comes out of the Holy of Holies. He speaks to the angel. All of these things are going on. And then look at the themes of his talk. And by the way, it's also a coronation, right? Because he's going to coronate his son, Mosiah. All of these things are going on here, just like with a temple drama that would happen with a temple drama. Now, here in chapter 2, after he's already said in chapter 1, he's going to give the people a new name. These are themes that would go right along with the temple drama. And look, and it came to pass when they came up to the temple, they pitched their tents round about. A tent is a tabernacle or booth, right? It's the Feast of Booths. It's the Feast of Tabernacles. And they pitched their tents round about the temple, every man having his tent with a door thereof toward the temple. That's what you do at the Feast of Tabernacles, that thereby they might remain in their tents and hear the words which King Benjamin should speak unto them. That is chapter 2, verse 6 in the book of Mosiah. And then there's a tower that's created. This would be very common for a drama. They even did this a little bit in, as they held on to some of this, as they did this in Babylon. They did this as well. But you see these themes that are they're very interesting when you compare them to the book of Psalms and the temple drama. One thing you see in here is a lot the word suffer. That's interesting, the way that is used. And then, of course, what you get here in verse 16, behold, I say unto you because I said unto you that I had spent my days in your service, I do not desire to boast, for I have only been in the service of God. This is the idea of submission and humility and condescension. And here the king is doing this. He would need to do this because that is what the King of Kings is going to do in the drama. He's going to lower himself below all, including into the underworld, to save us. Right? That's so the idea of the service here with King Benjamin, I believe, should be very tightly wound together with the suffering servant of Isaiah, which also, I believe, is part of the temple drama. Okay, so you get the suffering and the idea of service here, going to the poor and the service and lowering yourself, condescending down below everybody around you. That's very interesting. Again, you get it here, that when ye are in the service of your fellow beings, ye are only in the service of your God. Behold, ye have called me your king. And you see all the times he he is going to talk about being the king. You call me your king. Well, this looks to me like he is playing out a role. He's reading a part in something that's already evident here to all the people of what's happening. Behold, ye called me your king, and if I, whom ye call your king, do labor to serve you, then ought not ye to labor to serve one another, right? Because the king is going to also act, king and queen are going to be a representation also of the people in the congregation. Also, they're also going to be Adam and Eve, which also is to be like you. You are Adam and Eve. You are the king and the queen. Okay? And again here, you call me your queen, your king who has spent his days in your service and yet has been in the service of God. To merit any thanks from you, oh, how you ought to thank your heavenly king, or the King of Kings. Right? So we get this over and over again. I say unto you that ye should serve him. We get it again. If ye should serve him with all your whole souls, yet ye would be unprofitable servants. Right? Suffering servant, I think, is exactly what the chord that is being strung here. And this is strung. That's probably not the way you would say it. The chord that is being played here, that is being spoken here. And you'll see this over and over again. Therefore, as I said unto you that I had served you, right? And then you get kind of traditional or ritualistic terminology that I might rid my garments of your blood. And so this goes on and on here in King Benjamin's speech. This is hard to say that this is not a temple or a Feast of Tabernacles event here. If you go to 13, this is one of the very few places in all of Scripture outside of course, the Doctrine and Covenants, that we get the term of Melchizedek here. And this is all about the Order of Melchizedek, right? God ordained priest after his holy order. This goes right back to Psalm 110. The Order of Melchizedek, or what it used to be called was the Order of the Son, right? And we get that again here. And those priests were ordained after the order of his Son, okay? Prepared and called and prepared from the foundation of the world, in the council in heaven is what's happening there. In your hearts, the order of God, the commandments, the order of his Son, ordained, the only begotten, right? The only begotten, that is a temple title that you get there. That would have to do with about coming out of the Holy of Holies that you would get there. Their garments were washed white through the blood of the Lamb, ritualistic language. Ye humble yourselves even as the people in the days of Melchizedek. So this could be also playing out a part. You're looking back as the king. We talked about the Davidic kings and everybody being a Davidic king, but they're also a Melchizedek king and priest. They're looking back to that original king of Salem, who Abraham brought tithes to. Okay? So, and when we go through the temple, we become Melchizedeks, right? And women in a female form are also receiving the Melchizedek covenants and passing through the Melchizedek priesthood. See, it's the same thing that's happening here. Now, this Melchizedek was a king over the land of Salem, and so on and so on and so on. So looking at this in the light of the temple drama, I think makes things very different for us, and we get a little bit more richness in the text when we do that. Alma 11, I just want to quickly go to this. We talked about the two deaths in the Psalms. When we bring in the role of Jehovah, he is talking about overcoming death and hell, which is mortal death and judgment, mortal death and sin. Those two things. It's important to realize that that's what that is, because we're moving into a time right now where the part of the sin and hell is getting moved away, and it's happening all over Christianity, and it's just starting to seep into the church a little bit with some things, and we need to watch out for it. The two deaths, that is the heritage, the doctrine of the ancient Israelite temple drama and our temple drama as well. So here in chapters 11 and 12 and maybe beyond, we're going to get exactly this. Amulek goes in and talks about the mortal death. He's talking to all the people. Now, I've always believed here in Ammonihah that what's happening here at this time is the Feast of Trumpets. Well, in the fall festivals where we get the Feast of Tabernacles, the Day of Atonement, and the temple drama, the 8-day temple drama, this all starts with the Feast of Trumpets and Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah being the new year. And there are so many themes of the Feast of Trumpets that you find in Ammonihah with Amulek and Alma speaking. But here specifically, you get Amulek speaking of the mortal death and resurrection and conquering that, right, through Christ. Christ is going to conquer that. And then he hands off the baton over to Alma, and Alma then starts to talk about spiritual death, the second death, as he says, which is the hell that we see in the Psalms, that the king has fallen into. He has died in battle just against the adversary. It's kind of like the fall with Satan in the Garden of Eden, or the war in heaven, same thing. And he's fatally wounded and he dies. And he goes to the underworld, and Jehovah comes down and saves him from both the mortal death through resurrection, but also from spiritual death, where all of his sins are overcome. And he is then brought through the royal procession after that, brought up to the temple and crowned again to finally be actually the king. And the same thing happens with the queen, right? So very interesting that, if this is the Feast of Trumpets, that's just my belief, then that would be right in line with the temple drama and the fall festival with the temple drama and the themes that you would find in that ancient temple drama. And then lastly, we can go to 3rd Nephi here and talk just a little bit about that with the visit of Jesus to the Americas. There's a much more work that needs to be done on this. Much more work that needs to be done on this. But if you can imagine, first of all, where does Jesus come to, right, in the temple? He's going to come to the temple at Bountiful. He comes to the temple. He arrives at the temple just like he does in the last week of his mortal existence. And so, he's here at the temple, and for whatever reason, I don't think we really know why. And by the way, Bountiful probably means Eden, or we'll turn it around the other way. Eden may very well mean bountiful. One scholar specifically has said that what Eden means is bountiful. That's Zioni Zevet. I think he's over at Cal or Stanford. I think it's Cal. So bountiful means Eden. That's pretty interesting. It would be a temple-centered theme and area, right? That's the Garden of Eden kind of represents the temple. But here the people are all gathered for some reason. Are they there for a feast? Is it a feast at this time that they're coming and they keep hearing the voice? Is this a coronation ceremony for Jesus Christ after he has conquered death and hell? He's conquered death and hell, and here he now comes to the bountiful temple. Is he there as the King of Kings? We are given a couple of titles here that are kind of interesting. They talk about him being pierced, and they talk. Here we go. In verse 7, we get, "And behold, my beloved son." There's that introduction again, just like it is given from the Father to Joseph Smith, and just like we get with John the Baptist at Jesus' baptism and other places. Behold, my beloved son, or my Davidic son. And what that to me is a temple title, or a title that would be used in the temple drama. And here they are at the temple, right? And they saw a man descending out of heaven, and he was clothed in a white robe. We're going to get it, all these things that would be very ritualistic. at this time. We talk about a bitter cup, right? I am the light and life of the world. I drunk out of that bitter cup, which the Father hath given me. Is that a temple object? There's a lot of things that would go on here. If we look at a little bit further here, and I drank out of the bitter cup and have glorified the Father in taking upon me the sins of the world. That's the conquering of the second death, in the which I have suffered the will of the Father in all things from the beginning. It's interesting because if you go back to Abinadi, that's got to be a feast too. I think he's talking to King Noah at the time of a feast and perhaps a drama that has taken place at that feast. But he gives up his own will, or the will of the Son, to the will of the Father. That's exactly what Abinadi says that it means to be the Son. He's the Son because he gives up the will of the Father. It's a title that is given to him. He's also literally the Son, but it's a temple title. And what was foretold of in the drama, in the temple drama, to be the Son. Those that went through the temple would become sons and daughters of God, right? So very interesting there. So the people here are going to respond just like they do in King Benjamin's speech. They're all of one accord. It's like they're following the drama that would go, and they're out in front of the temple. They're probably, I'm going to guess, they're all in their tents. They're facing Bountiful here, and we get in this kind of can you imagine, the real play is actually happening. It's not just taking place with the king of the land, right? The temple king. It's actually happening with Jesus. And perhaps he even goes into the Holy of Holies, sits on the throne and in front of all, and is perhaps crowned there. So I don't know that, but wow, it's fun to speculate a little bit there. This could be a coronation ceremony. This could be a temple drama that is occurring here at this time. This could be even a rededication of the temple at the time of Jesus. And there's so much more that would go on here. Where does faith, hope, and charity come from with Mormon and Moroni? Where we see it with Paul, and that's something that comes from the critics of the Book of Mormon, and Joseph Smith. Why is he talking about faith, hope, and charity? That's what Paul talked about. Well, where did Paul get it? Where did Paul get that? I mean, we know he goes off for 2 or 3 years off to the east, somewhere probably in Arabia. Who's he talking to? Where is he getting this information on these 3 attributes of faith, hope, and charity? Why are they the same ones that Mormon and Moroni have at a completely different land and a completely different time? Is it tied to the brass plates for Mormon and Moroni? Well, it wouldn't probably be tied to the brass plates for Paul, but yet he talks about it. Is this part of the temple drama, the ancient temple drama? And is Paul referring back to that from things he's learned from others? I don't know. There's a lot of different ideas there that you can look at. A lot more work needs to be done on this. But I hope we can see that the temple drama is central to the doctrine of the church and always has been in the past. And the more we can see that and understand this ancient temple drama that happened and the core doctrines that are in that temple drama, relate them to our own temple experience and enrich our own temple experience, and then look for these contexts of the temple drama within the scriptures where they might be happening. Is there a festival happening? Why are they talking about this now? Why are they talking at the temple? Really brings things to light. Thanks for listening.